Kia ora, Jaime. Welcome to this chat, and I'm so grateful that you agreed to have a talk with us. So Jaime was a graduate of Ako Torowhānui, the Māori Healing Training, and she's now practicing, and she also co-owns a gym with her partner Josh, the Tribe, who you guys hosted our first Koha Healing Day, and will at some point host another one, depending on when everything aligns.
I am a mum of two little boys. I've got a 2.5-year-old and a 7-month-old. So that in itself is another journey as well. Motherhood has been an amazing journey, and also something that's, I feel, has led me to RomiRomi in terms of my own healing, which having children and going through that process has helped things to shift a bit faster. So that's essentially what's led me to RomiRomi, has been my own journey, and then experiencing it with yourself. I co-own a gym with my partner, and that's been a big part of our journey. So my cultural background is part Māori, I guess Pākehā Kiwi, white Kiwi, but the roots are from Scotland, from the Shetland Islands. So that's my sort of more Pākehā background. My Māori background, I'm Ngāti Kahungunu, and I was born in Hastings, New Zealand. So I'm from the Hawke's Bay region, and I grew up in Palmerston North. And so, yeah, I've got a mixed background, and I know that we connect a lot on that level, and a few of us as well in the training with having those two parts of our background as well, which I feel definitely adds to the practice too. Like what I was drawn to is that it is quite intimate. I don't know the right words to describe it, but I've always felt like that need for that hands-on connection in terms of working with the energy and being able to really reach people on a deeper level, to have that connection. For me, I really love that it works from the heart space, whatu manawa. That feels really right and really sacred for me, and why I relate so strongly to the practice, because it's tapping into a lot of the culture in the background as well, I feel. It doesn't mean that that's not for non-Māori. It still means that it is for anybody. But for me, being able to feel held and supported as a practitioner in the practice by that background, it really makes it feel like home, and why I really love it as well. RomiRomi, we're accessing the highest possible dimension that you can access, which is our divine source creator. So when you're working with other dimensions, you're working with everything in between, where other modalities that I've worked in the past, you're working in that one modality, and when you're working with the whatu manawa, you're also working with the different textures of things to set that space as well, when we're opening up any portals and connecting into iohini motu, papatuanuku, rangirui, any atua, inviting in ancestors and really feeling held and calling in that person's highest self, and also just setting the intentions and making that really clear that we are working for that person's highest good, just ensuring that I'm whakanoa within myself. So when I step into that space, which is amazing, like you think, if you've got your own stuff going on, that it may be harder to step into that space, and sometimes it is, but often it's not, surprisingly. Once you're in that space and you are becoming a channel, that's what I really love about the practice as well, because for me, when I step into that session, I generally feel quite invigorated afterwards, and quite grounded within myself from giving RomiRomi. RomiRomi has helped me to shift through a lot of things that come up a lot more swiftly than it used to. It helps you to have the tools and the understanding of how to shift through the things that we're feeling, and understand a bit more, especially working in the whatu manawa, the all-seeing eye, and working a lot within the heart. So in everyday life and in business and things as well, RomiRomi has helped me a lot to deepen my relationships, to have more success in business, to just have more enjoyment out of life, and to understand my own energy a lot more. Yeah, it really feels like a natural practice, and it feels really safe and really grounding. That was the biggest thing for me that I think I felt and took away from my first RomiRomi session was how grounded I felt afterwards, and just back in my true vibration as well. And the session is always so different when you're working with somebody else as to the way that you would give RomiRomi, because you completely drop in and all of that drops away. So the thoughts and things, as soon as you can come back to your breath and drop into your body, it feels really unique. Yeah, I'm always ready. I always feel ready for whatever's coming up, and to work through that with that person. Works on so many levels, it's really hard to describe that, but essentially as a RomiRomi practitioner, you are purely a channel for whatever purpose the divine appointment of the person that you're working with in that day has come to you for. So it's really stepping back and holding space, what you're bringing forward in that day, or what they're calling forward as well, and helping them to reach that point where you're inviting them in constantly to shift and to move past the pain that's coming up, and to come to their own understanding of what those different textures feel like, and why that's happening, and then allowing that to integrate. And that's in the form of some massage with the MiriMiri, the puya, the romi, using the elbows, the feet, the knees, whatever it takes, or whatever you need for that person, tonga, pendulum, crystals and things to help with that process, and helps to release those points as well, which you can't always get to with your hands. Sometimes it is a little bit a bit deeper. I feel like it can be a bit more intimidating as a practitioner to do that kind of work, because it is something so different to what people are used to. Like, people are quite used to being on a table in a massage kind of setting where there's a lot of use of hands and things. When someone's on the floor, you're not really using your hands at all. Like, it's a lot of feet and knees and things, and sort of, you know, walking the body, and it is very grounding as well. I mean, you also have the flexibility of doing it inside or outside. Ako Torowhānui, it just adds another layer, because you've got those people around you holding space, and you're all on that similar pathway, and you're sharing together, and it's opening up all those relationships and opportunities to work a lot more on each other, and to have that access, and to learn from each other too, which is a big part of that space. So it really, like, each part has been amazing, and the more RomiRomi that I've had done on myself or done on others has also really helped my journey. But yeah, it looks so different from where it was, say, my first session, which setting up Ako Torowhānui, having those people to practice on as well, just to build that muscle around what you're doing and how the practice works. Because you can learn those foundational things, but the biggest thing is putting that into practice, and the pillars, and understanding the background of the practice, and where we're sourcing from, and why that's beneficial to that person. And that's what I love about Ako Torowhānui, and that it is theory, but it is also very hands-on and practical. That's something that I feel that you hold and you bring, and holding that space, and just, I guess, your experience and wealth of knowledge behind it all, and behind the culture and the roots, and also translating it all into a really easily digestible way of understanding, which can be quite challenging with spiritual concepts, especially I feel RomiRomi has a lot of different aspects to it that you could go into. So the way that everything's broken down, I feel has been really beneficial, and has made the whole learning process a lot easier. And whether you want to fully become a practitioner as well. And if you do want to become a practitioner, then it is a lot about having that confidence to just go with it and learn along the way. And learning on the Koha Healing Days is pretty cool, because sometimes you're working with people you know, sometimes you're working with complete strangers, sometimes it's people you know through somebody else. And just working on all those different people really helps to give you an understanding of the different ways that RomiRomi can work, and the different reasons that those people were there. And I think the more people you work on and the different experiences you have with those people and the different textures of the energies and the body and the whole process, it's the best way to learn. You don't know how you're fully going to feel after a session, and then you do a full Koha day and you may do, I don't know, like 6 to 8 sessions or more. Like I know the first one that we did, I don't even know how many people we did in that Koha Healing Day. It was a lot. It was from maybe like 10 in the morning or 11 in the morning till like 7 o'clock at night or something. But
we've learned since then.
yeah. We've taken away some things since.
Some lessons.
Yeah. But it's amazing how when you're in that space and when you're whakanoa and when you're just flowing with that energy, how if you are a pure vessel, then you're invigorated, generally you're energized and you're not feeling drained. It's the opposite of what you think, like, oh my God, doing that many sessions like would be exhausting, which is what a lot of people think it is. And a lot of people that come for a session are like, wow, it must be so exhausting to hold that space or to go through that process, but it really isn't. So I've taken a lot away from the Koha Healing Days. It's like a fast tracking of your learning to put yourself out there as well too, but is because you're both working in that space and you can see what's happening and you can support each other, and how the energy moves around the body. There may be multiple things happening at one point in time, especially if somebody's releasing. So it's really awesome in that space to have that. Yeah. And it's also unique, especially if you're swapping around who you're working with, what those two, the synergy of those two people brings together is a pretty cool experience as well. It's completely different to working on your own.
So beautiful. I always find that difficult, you know, when you're doing that business niche thing, because I feel like we see so many different type, like you couldn't say there's one type of people that we're seeing or that are drawn to. It is so like Wairoa based. so like people who feel the call of the Wairoa, like that's the nature.
And they look so different. There's no age bracket. It's not more gender, male or female or anything. And I guess that's what it comes back to. It's that Wairoa, and it's not anything to do with our physical bodies. Yeah, it's purely connection. And I guess there's the dimensions that you're working within. So that could be, you know, where you're accessing energy from, but there's also the aspect of, is it this person's stuff in this lifetime? Is it from a past lifetime? Is it some sort of lineage thing? Is it a collective consciousness thing? Is it for all of mankind? Is it for all the women in the world? And you get to understand from the way that they're releasing and where they're releasing from. Something that I find really interesting. That's part of my passion for this, and why I think it's such an incredible practice, because I feel like it's hard to come by. It's really unique.
I like that description. Yeah, and even that recognition that as human beings we are that divine and we are that powerful, that we can release for the collective, and we can release for all womankind.
So many goosebumps.
Yeah.
Especially at the moment. It's, like we have so much power within us to step back and to be that person, and to know that we are so divine that we can have such an impact on the whole collective. If we're working from that space and setting those intentions and putting it all out there, there's so much that we can do as just one person or with some other people who are sharing those thoughts and that way of approaching the current climate.
Initially, when we started Ako Torowhānui, there were a few people who did feel scared about like not feeling safe. Is there anything you would say to anyone else out there who maybe has that same fear of spiritual or like spirit or their tipuna, if they're, getting visitations?
Yeah. Oh, that's been such a big part of my journey. I feel that on so many levels. That was probably the biggest thing that I took away from Ako Torowhānui, and what's given me the confidence to become a practitioner. It's taken me a long time of dabbling in different modalities and playing around with it myself to feel safe. It is really having somebody there to help navigate that, because I feel like it's something that can be really hard to navigate on your own unless there's somebody else who's been through it and understands and can help to build that trust in your intuition and with working with energy and working with that space. And it all comes with practice as well, and seeing for yourself and feeling those messages, and however it comes to you, whether you follow the full sequence or not, and the closing and everything in between, that whole having that to fall back on also gives that real sense of security around working in that space and working with spirits and opening up that realm. I feel you start to become confident in that and trusting and knowing that it's okay. So for anyone that is a little bit afraid, perhaps seeking out a spiritual mentor, I know for me that's been a game changer. But it's a collective uprising that we're going through, and everyone is on their own journey too. So that's a big thing that I keep reminding myself, is that I feel the need to step back and support from afar. And it doesn't mean that I'm not supporting people in everyday life and having conversations about what's happening. But just the space that I'm trying to come from with it is a very neutral standpoint. We're trying not to interfere too much with that or overspeak into that space as well. Again, coming back to working with that collective energy, there is a lot that we can do without always having to be at the forefront, where sometimes I think you feel as a healer that you need to be posting about what's happening or providing insights or helping people through the ways that they've been triggered and offering that guidance, where sometimes I feel at the moment for myself, it's taking a different shape, which is to support more from afar and on an energetic level.
Yeah, no, that's so beautiful. And I feel so similarly. It's almost as if when I try to speak at the moment, that words take away from the actual potency of the energetics, because there is something indescribable about this moment, and it's almost poetic as well. And that what you shared about allowing each person their journey, it does feel like an interference, because I truly trust that people will reach out to me if they need to, like that, those energetics will always be in play, that energetics of like our tipuna or spirit kaitiaki, like guiding us where we need to go. Like I don't think that those energetics have changed, but the collective consciousness energetics have almost changed. So that's the piece where I need to, for me, figure out where I sit on that landscape in terms of like interrogating who I want to be and what things from the past that I want to bring in.
But it really is, and the energy is changing each day feeling really energized and really optimistic, and then going into perhaps the next day feeling a bit more depleted and a bit more like resting, and not as energized and not as able to hold space as well. So I feel like it's a time of just so much like, and you start to understand it, and then it shifts again. And you're like, okay, I've got no idea. Yeah, but no idea.
Yeah, I literally came out of an online session last night. I was like, right, I'm ready to like launch this online thing, and then 10 minutes later I was like, I can't go online. I was just like that. I was like, how can I hold an online space if I can't go online?
It is, you're like, yeah. And then you're like, no, something's telling you to stop. And it's like a big block again, where it's like, no, just process a bit more first.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's that learning to trust that that's always how the wairua of my gift has worked. Like it's my wairua works at this slower pace, and my mind works quick, but my like spirit works slower, and so it's this aspect of like allowing those two to merge,
to dance around, and
because my mind's like, you could do this and you could do that, and it like sees all the things, and then my spirit's like, no, rest, little child.
Just really trusting and knowing that there is so much power behind this practice, and that you can really fast track your life and what you're going through, and sometimes what we're feeling isn't ours as well, so we're trying to analyze something that we're not meant to really analyze to, or it may just be something trapped within us. So that's where I feel the power of body work comes in, and the power of this practice and everything that's involved in helping people through these shifts. So for me, depressive state at times has always been a sign that there's a deep spiritual calling there, and whatever modality you're drawn to, I feel it is perfect as well, and it's all part of spirituality. Has always been something that in some way, shape or form I've felt comfortable with within myself, and I guess with the way I've been brought up, and I know a lot of people haven't had that in their lives, or perhaps you have, but you've felt a bit like misunderstood in the process, or like a little bit of an outcast maybe when it comes to spirituality. Just trust yourself and know that you're not a weirdo, and that you may have a massive gift. And for anyone that is experiencing those times where they feel really defeated, just knowing that spirituality can help to bring you out of that space, and to understand, grateful that I understand why those points in my life happened, that it's been able to lead me to this. So I love you so much. You're like I feel like you're like a big sister to me. And I've always felt like you have this massive capacity and such a nurturing, grounding Mother Earth feel about you, which instantly makes people feel comfortable in your presence. And for me, I felt like when I met you, it's like that whole old soul thing where you feel like you've known people for your whole life. And I really feel like having that as a leader and as somebody who's bringing people into this space is really important. And I'm really grateful for that. So I'm always forever grateful that our paths crossed, and for being a part of that practice, and for the beautiful people that I've got to know through being a part of Ako Torowhānui as well.
Thank you. That means a lot. I feel the same.
Kia tautorangi Māori ki runga i ngā iwi o te ao. So what that means in English is, let your peace reign on all the people of the world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So grateful.
Mm.